I've got some great news to share with you. I got a job. I got a permanent job. My first permanent job in 15 years. I've been self-employed for the last 15 years and I've spent the last 2 to 3 years looking for a full-time job and I've not been able to find one, and I was almost ready to give up. Hundreds of applications, so many rejections, so many people who didn't even get back to me. It has been such a shock to me, the fact that I couldn't get a job aged 46, because when I was younger, I spent so many years just hopping from job to job. I could do an interview and then get the job straight away. I never really got any rejection, especially low-paid jobs. I could just walk from one to the other straight away. I've done all kinds of jobs. I've worked in IT, I've been an IT teacher, I've been a foster carer. And when I had my own kids, the plan was for me to be a stay-at-home mum, but I got really bored of baby stuff very quickly and I started a business, an online business, and it started absolutely booming. I was getting millions of hits to my website every single month and my income was sky high, and it stayed high for about 8 years. Then it gradually started to decline and decline and decline to pretty much nothing. Now I've still got my business, it pretty much breaks even, but I knew I needed to get a full-time job, especially when my ex-husband said he wanted a divorce about 2 years ago. I knew I needed to get back on my feet financially, and it has been an absolute struggle. I've applied for so many jobs. I've applied for mid-level jobs, I've applied for IT jobs, I've applied for marketing jobs, sales jobs. I've got a lot of interviews, but nobody's actually hired me. Then I started getting desperate. I started applying for very low-paid jobs. I would apply for jobs at supermarkets, local shops. Nobody was getting back to me. I got the occasional rejection. I didn't even get an interview, which really, really sucks when you've got so much life experience and so much passion and so much you feel like you could give to a workplace, and nobody wants to even give you the time of day. I even applied for jobs at McDonald's and I didn't hear anything back. That's the ultimate kick in the teeth. Yes, I'm a qualified teacher. I couldn't get a permanent job as a full-time teacher, and I really wanted a permanent job. I could get a temporary job as a teacher, but the stress levels for teaching are through the roof. When you're a supply teacher, the behavior is so bad. I was dreading going to work. I did go back as a temporary teacher a year ago, and I was just dreading going to work every day. I would have rather done anything else but teaching, but I was getting to the point where I would have accepted teaching. But I had to pay for all these things to get back into teaching. I had to pay for the teaching council registration, the DBS check all myself. And for something I didn't really want to do, I didn't really want to outlay that money. So I just kept on applying for other jobs. But there was nothing that I was really passionate about. And then I got a good idea. It actually came from my ex. He had always been working in academia, but he'd taken a redundancy. And I think to tide himself over, he'd just taken a job as a support worker, working with children or adults with learning disabilities. And I thought, well, that's a very big shift from what he has been doing. How has he had the experience? How has he got that job? And then I remembered that we used to do foster caring together. We worked with teenagers who had a lot of trauma in their lives, and also teenagers and young adults who had learning disabilities. And I thought, well, if he got a job with that experience, then why couldn't I? And I don't know why I didn't have that thought before, but I suddenly got that idea and I thought I could do something similar to that. And in my family, there's always been a big passion for working with people who are homeless or disadvantaged. And my daughter had a massive passion, and she wanted to do some voluntary experience working with the homeless, but she's only 14 years old. So I was doing some research into these homeless charities, seeing if anybody would give her voluntary work experience. And then I just clicked on vacancies, and then I saw these jobs as support workers for homeless people or people who had been homeless. And for some reason, I didn't realize that these kind of jobs existed. And I saw them and I thought, I could do that. Not only could I do that, but I want to do that. I'm really passionate about that. That would be like my dream job. So I started applying for these kind of things. I applied for one working in a children's home, and I almost got to the final stage, but they were dragging their heels with it, taking too long. And then I got an interview for a local homeless charity. And not only is it just round the corner from where I live in my town, I could probably walk to work, but it's working really good hours. They're family friendly. I don't start work till 9:30 in the morning, meaning I can still drop my kids off, get my kids ready for school, which is a real struggle, which is something that I struggled with teaching. I had to leave the house even before they'd got out of bed. My daughter really struggles to get out of bed. So I thought, this is absolutely perfect. So I did the interview. I think most of it went really, really well. I think my passion really came across. I found myself getting really excited, asking genuine questions, and I really wanted the job. But I did mess up one of the questions. They asked me a question and I gave the wrong answer. And then at the end they said, well, don't worry, you would receive training for this, so it doesn't matter that you got the wrong answer, because I didn't have any direct experience in that sector. So I thought, I didn't get the job. A couple of weeks went by and I thought, well, I'm going to phone up anyway just to see if I got the job. And I phoned them up and they said, yes, you did get the job. We just haven't gotten around to letting you know. And I was over the moon. I thought, oh my goodness, that's amazing. And then I had to overcome some more hurdles, like, for example, my references. Because I've been working on my business for the last 15 years, I haven't got any up-to-date references. Yes, I did a bit of teaching, but I had to leave early because my kids were having problems at that time and they weren't able to get to school. So I thought, well, they're not going to give me a good reference because I left early. And before that, all the jobs I used to have, yes, I could have got good references because I always did a good job, but I couldn't get hold of anybody. Everybody that I used to work with had moved on. Nobody remembered me. Companies had completely shut down. I did some voluntary work for a company who helped ex-offenders and service users to get back on their feet after coming out of prison. And that charity had completely shut down. Couldn't get hold of anyone who used to work there. Even the school I used to work with had had a transformation, a new name, new staff, new everything. So I didn't have any references. And they wanted 2 references from jobs. And I thought, what am I going to do? And when life's on your side, things tend to pop up that you didn't expect. So one of the jobs I had applied for was this very temporary job, and I've done another video on my experience with this job. But they offered me 3 shifts selling fireworks. That was it, just 3 shifts. And they didn't ask for any references, so they just gave me the job, which was amazing. So I did my 3 shifts selling fireworks, and then they gave me a reference. So that was one reference sorted. And then I thought, what am I going to do for the other reference? And as life has a habit of having coincidences where you really need them, we had just started doing dog walking for people. So we walk people's dogs for free because we enjoy it. We're not in a position to have our own dog, but we love walking dogs. So we started walking dogs for this family, for this lady, and as coincidences would have it, she runs a homeless charity. And I told her that I was trying to get a job for a homeless charity, and then she offered to write me a reference because I'd been walking her dog. And I thought that would be a personal reference, but it turns out, because it's actually voluntary work, it's actually a work-based reference. So I got a very relevant reference. So that was amazing. So I actually started my job a couple of days ago. All I'm doing this week is training. Well, pretty much this month I'm doing training. At the moment, I'm just doing online training at home, so I haven't really met any of the team. I went for an induction in person, so I met a couple of people at head office there. And it feels amazing to have started a full-time permanent job. And it feels different for when I had my temporary job doing teaching when it all went wrong last year, because I didn't have any support. I was a single mum, still single mum, but I've got a new partner and his family are very supportive. So they're actually picking the kids up after school. So this is so much support and I really couldn't have done it without them all. I'm so grateful for them. And my wage is actually really low. In my business, I used to turn over 10 times the amount that I'm earning per month. But you know what? I really value this stability. I haven't had the stability of having a full-time permanent job for such a long time, and I forgot what a relief it feels like, because even though my business was turning over so much money, my business expenses were high and I had lifestyle creep. So I had a lot of things that I had to pay money for every single month. We had an expensive house, expensive car. I sent the kids to a private nursery. And all of this used to give me so much anxiety every time I did my finances every single month, thinking, am I going to be able to afford my massive expenses? Has my business made any money at all? It was a real worry because my business model was quite volatile. It wasn't stable. It wasn't something that I could predict. It was kind of luck-based, really. Yes, I did a lot of hard work, but it was whether or not I got sent the traffic by the Google gods, by the social media gods. Were they going to be kind on me that month? Who knows? I got lucky, I had lots of things going viral, and it paid off for a very, very long time. And it is still generating money now, it's just that it's dropped so low it's not viable anymore. And I was actually curious how I was going to feel going back into the workplace again, because I used to be a very, very shy person. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I used to go into workplaces and I wouldn't say anything. In meetings, I wouldn't say a word. I'd keep myself to myself, saying the bare minimum. I didn't feel confident in myself. I felt that managers were above me and kind of scared of them, to be honest with you. And I wondered how I was going to react going back into the workplace after such a long break. And actually, I've surprised myself. I don't really recognize myself. I've got this new confidence that I didn't really realize that I would have in a workplace. I thought that I would go back and be really quiet because I haven't been in a workplace for such a long time. But I've got such a different perspective on myself now because I've done so much work on my personal growth. And I really don't mind what people think of me anymore. I don't care if people think that I'm stupid, that I'm far behind. All that stuff doesn't bother me. So what I do is I just ask questions. If I'm not sure of something and I know that I need to know something, I'll just ask questions. And I got told in my induction that, that's when they said, what sector have you come from? And I said, I haven't come from a sector. I've had my own business. And they said, well, that explains why you've been asking so many sensible questions, but questions that everybody else has the answers to. And yes, it might make me look a bit stupid, but I don't care because I am where I am who I am, and I totally accept myself for who I am. And I know I'm going to do my best to do a good job, and I will ask questions if I need to know something. So I don't mind at all. So what I've learned after all those rejections is to find something that you're really passionate about, because your passion will come through. I couldn't really find a job that I was as passionate about as my own business. And people were actually telling me this in interviews. They were saying, once a business owner, always a business owner. You're just going to leave and go back to your business again. You're not going to be able to take orders. And I think it was because I wasn't really passionate about the job. It wasn't coming across. And when it did come across, when I found my real calling in life, I got the job. And not only that, but I think I was going to get one of the other jobs as well, because he said that he was pretty certain I was going to get the job. That was agency work, working with the council with the potential to be permanent in the future. And this one's actually a permanent job straight away. So I'm feeling so grateful. And I just want to tell you that if you've been out of the workforce for a long time, it's not too late for you. There are things you do. Try and do some voluntary work to get back into it, get those references, get your confidence back again. And you might really surprise yourself as to what your passions are and how confident you actually are at this later age in life. My channel is called Freedom Kitty, and it's all about my journey to financial independence and retiring early. And having a stable income is a massive part of that plan. I couldn't do it without this stable job, because I need to know how much I've got every month, that I can rely on that money, that I've got a work-based pension, because I don't have a pension yet. So I needed a pension. So I'm going to have a work-based pension, also a SIP, a private pension. So I'm going to have 2 pensions. And now I know I have a guaranteed amount coming in every month. I know that I can budget properly, and I know that I can invest a certain amount every single month. And I've done a last video on budgeting, which was my budgeting for the entire next year. So go and check that out, and you can see my whole budget, how much I earn, what my income is, my outgoings, and how I'm still going to plan to retire early in my 50s. And definitely within the next 10 years, if not sooner. Leave me a comment below, let me know what stage in your journey you're up to and how life is working out for you. Let's all work together, help each other, and build a community. Have an amazing day.